So you'd think IKEA wants to get you to the checkout fast. Every other retailer does. Sounds pretty obvious. It isn't how IKEA actually works. Here's the part almost nobody understands about this business. IKEA does not want you to find what you came for quickly. It wants you lost for as long as possible on purpose. Most people think IKEA sells furniture. It doesn't. Not really. What it actually sells is a journey, and getting lost inside it is the entire point. This single idea explains almost everything strange about how these stores are built. You will see the maze, the mechanism, and the moment IKEA tried to remove it and quickly regretted the decision. This is not really a story about furniture shopping. It is a story about a company that turned confusion into a business model. Stay with me, because the company's own failed experiment proves a theory better than any explanation could. The maze that costs millions to build. Building this kind of store is not cheap or simple. A typical IKEA warehouse runs around 30,000 square meters. That is roughly the size of 5 full football fields under one single roof. Construction alone can run into the tens of millions of dollars per location. The layout is not a normal grid of aisles. It is a single fixed one-way path that winds through the entire building. Architects designed the route years in advance, mapping every turn before construction begins. There is no shortcut built into the main showroom on purpose. Every design choice, down to the ceiling height and the aisle width, serves one single goal: keep you inside longer and the sales will follow. Even the lighting shifts subtly from section to section, nudging your pace without you noticing. Most locations sit far outside city centers, on cheap land near highway exits. The drive itself becomes part of the psychology long before a shopper even walks through the door. A long trip out to the store makes leaving empty-handed feel like an entirely wasted afternoon. The mechanism hiding in the floor plan. Here's the part that sounds backwards until you think it through. The effect has a name. Architects call it the Gruen Transfer, after the man who designed the first enclosed mall. It describes a moment a shopper loses track of why they walked in. IKEA showrooms have no windows and almost no clocks anywhere in sight. Without daylight or a clock, your sense of urgency quietly fades away. Colored arrows painted on the floor guide you in one direction only, with almost no visible way back. In a typical retail store, shoppers see roughly a third of the merchandise on offer during a normal visit. IKEA's fixed path pushes that number dramatically higher. You walk past nearly everything before you ever reach a shopping cart. The showroom itself is staged as dozens of fully furnished room displays, never as bare shelves. Shoppers picture their own homes inside each little scene, one department at a time. Researchers call this a treasure hunt effect. The longer you wander, the more the eventual purchase feels earned rather than impulsive. By the time you reach the warehouse section, you've already mentally moved in. Small marked shortcuts do exist along the route, but most first-time shoppers never notice them at all. Tiny items like candles, frames, and kitchen tools sit at the very end near checkout. By then, resistance to spending a little more has mostly worn away. The trap of listening to complaints too literally. Here's the trap hiding underneath this entire business. Customers complain about the maze constantly in almost every online review. It is tempting to treat that complaint as a design flaw to fix. The maze is not a flaw. It is the actual mechanism generating a huge share of impulse sales. Grocery stores use a milder version of the same idea, tucking milk and eggs at the very back of the building. A retailer that fixes the exact friction customers complain about risks losing the psychology behind it entirely. Comfort and confusion are pulling in opposite directions here. Removing one can quietly kill the other. The year IKEA tried to remove its own maze, meet the choose-your-own-path experiment. In recent years, IKEA tested a new format in select downtown locations. Stores in Madrid, Shanghai, and Warsaw let shoppers roam freely instead of following one fixed route. City dwellers rarely drive out to suburban warehouses the way families do. Executives worried a rigid maze would feel exhausting inside a small downtown footprint. The idea was simple. Modern shoppers are busy, so let them shop however they want. A small format store in New York followed the same open layout approach. The freedom sounded like an obvious improvement on paper. In practice, foot traffic at some of these locations fell. The New York location closed within about a year, citing low customer turnout. Similar concerns followed at several of the other experimental city locations. Executives later acknowledged the maze wasn't just tolerated by shoppers. It was, in a strange way, actually wanted. IKEA's own leadership described the traditional format as remaining central to its strategy going forward. The company kept experimenting with smaller urban formats elsewhere afterward. The free-roaming layout, the one built specifically to remove the maze, quietly lost ground over time. The confusion that shoppers complained about was the same confusion that kept them buying. Why the restaurant isn't really about food. One more detail explains just how deliberate all of this is. Close to a third of IKEA shoppers say they come mainly for the food. The restaurant brought in over $2 billion in a single recent year. That alone would rank IKEA among the largest food retailers on earth. Cheap prices on coffee and meatballs make the stop feel almost free by comparison. The meatballs are not a side business. Eating early in the visit puts shoppers in a relaxed, satisfied state of mind. Many locations place the restaurant roughly halfway through the showroom loop, not at the entrance. A full stomach, it turns out, makes for a much easier sale right when energy starts to fade. The real odds of building it. In the optimistic scenario, the maze runs exactly as designed. Shoppers wander, forget their shopping list, and leave the store with far more than planned. Basket sizes grow, and the extra impulse items quietly outweigh the cost of running a giant building. In the realistic scenario, a design team removed the friction to please short-term online complaints. Foot traffic quietly drops, and nobody notices exactly why until the store closes for good. IKEA already ran this exact experiment and watched it fail in real cities. The lesson cost real money and several closed storefronts to learn. Every winding path, every missing window, every meatball is part of the same design. Furniture was never really the hard part of this business to sell. Attention always was a harder problem, and the maze solved it long before checkout even entered the picture. The company never needed you to find the exit quickly. It only needed you to forget you were looking for one.